Standardizing knowledge is only the first step. To really translate the knowledge into actionable information, it has to be grounded in local case studies. For the knowledge to stick, case studies are really important. Western case studies might not land well in the Indian context. So, case studies tailored to the Indian scenario are necessary to reinforce learning and convert passive reading into really active and applicable and useful knowledge. So, this is where Vidya, a case study studio, steps in. It takes any concept, topic, or passage that the user or learner is interested in exploring and converts it into a case study that is set in the Indian reality with cultural resonance to the Indian local reality. So that's what is the premise of developing Vidya, a case studio, crafting case studies from the heart of India to clearly demonstrate concepts grounded in the local context. So let's do this with a particular example, right? So there are any concept that you could provide here. There are some chips that are provided here to just get started. We could try one of these chips, the concept of natural selection and adaptation in evolutionary biology, and we can say generate a case study and see how it is tailored to the Indian context and how it is developed by Vidya with a lot of different dimensions to the case study. So let's go ahead and generate the case study here. So it says weaving a narrative from the tapestry of India and scouting locations from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So Vidya also includes features for assessment questions at the end, and the learner takes the assessment and Vidya will evaluate them and provide some feedback and suggestions for going forward from the performance of the candidate. So Vidya is one of the constituents of a learning framework for learner empowerment that we are calling the Synthese Matrix. And you might see in the playlist a few other components of this Synthese Matrix that provide a holistic educational framework from knowledge acquisition to case studies to assessment and evaluation, and again identifying gaps and repeating the loop again for deeper knowledge. So let's wait a minute or two while the case study is being crafted for the example we have chosen, which is a biological example. So it is imaginable that for demonstrating natural selection, it may situate a case study in the forests of India maybe, with different stakeholders and the tourism department in the picture. And engineering a problem in the situation as a case study, and then going on to explain the solution to the problem, the outcomes, and then asking some assessment questions based on that. All right, so here goes. So this is the case study it has developed. It is the peppered moths of Pune when industry changes the rules of survival. So it's the Pune surrounding Western Ghats region, and there's some environmental biology. Maybe the moths are changing color due to the industrial soot, and so there's a case study based on that. It's a generally well-known case study about the moths changing their coloration. So here is a protagonist, Dr. Meera Kulkarni, and she has studied the moth populations around Pune's industrial corridors, and it reveals a striking pattern: light colored moths are vanishing while dark variants thrive. So, this challenges local industries and offers a living laboratory for understanding how pollution drives evolutionary change in real time. So, these are the challenges: documenting evolutionary change, establishing causation between industrial pollution and phenotypic changes, and communicating these concepts to industrial stakeholders, balancing the scientific objectivity with the implications of the findings. And then we need to scale up the citizen science involvement as well. So that is the synopsis. Now you see it takes the case study through a sequence. And so the synopsis is followed by a background, and then the case is detailed. Who are the stakeholders in the case? What is the concept map that is involved? And then what are the outcomes finally? And some discussion based on the outcome. So the background is this industrial belt, Rajgurunagar, which is like 30 kilometers north of Pune, which has been developing since the 1990s. Right? So you see, Dr. Meera Kulkarni is a field scientist in the Department of Zoology at the Ferguson College in Pune, and they were doing a field trip with her students in 2013. They were collecting these specimens of moths when they noticed and made this observation that every moth they caught were all dark, various shades of grey and charcoal. So this was quite surprising to them, and they went about seeking an answer to this. So she was intrigued and began a systematic longitudinal study. So it's a very nice, like, imagined case study about this, a natural habitat zone for the moths, which are found naturally and close to industries. We find this adaptation in the moths. So there's a lot of details here as well, right? So it provides all this and mostly imagined, and then there's the case. So it was comprehensive data was obtained, and she presented to the Indian Academy of Scientists. It's called as industrial melanism in real time, right? So it's like evolution in action, in real time action. And so, like, is there something to do that can mitigate this, or is this something to worry about? The industries could argue that the moths changing color is hardly proof that our operations are harmful. So they're changing color, so what, right? So and then Dr. Meera can show the correlation between particulate matter and the frequency of dark moths. So therefore, that means that there's a rise in this particulate matter, and particulate matter just represents pollution, and pollution is harmful to human as well, and is bad for the environment. And therefore there is quantitative evidence to show this relationship. And so there's a bit of back and forth to convince the other parties. So now here there's a detailed breakdown of who the stakeholders are. So this is our scientist, and then there are some graduate students in our lab who are doing the work, and then there's the president of the Rajgurunagar Industrial Association. There's a owner of a organic chemical manufacturing unit which cannot tolerate the environmental pollution. So this person is an environmental advocate to bridge the gap between research and industry and bring the research into action. And there's also a journalist who's caught up in these things, and there's another undergraduate student as well working in Dr. Meera's lab. And you can see the concept connections here. So how the concept manifests in this case. So the concept that we wanted to probe in the beginning, natural selection and adaptation, and therefore you can see that this change from 85% pale to 90% dark moths demonstrates natural selection acting on heritable variation. The dark coloration gene has increased in frequency because it confers a survival advantage in the changed environment. So there is differential survival and reproduction, which is essentially the mechanism of adaptation, and so therefore we can show how environmental pressures create selective forces that drive evolutionary change across the population gradient, that is here the moths. So just over 10 years there is a rapid population shift, So evolution can occur on observable time scales, which is another surprising and stark finding in this case study. All right, so there's the outcome to this. So there's a pilot program from the pressure from the science groups and the journalists and the organic environmental advocate. So therefore, there was a educational component to it. Schools were adopting this case study in their science curriculum, and students learned to identify the species and presented their findings and communicated about their findings as well, and spread the awareness about the changes that were happening due to the increase in industrialization, or more particularly the increase in concentration of particulate matter in the environment. All right, so then we can have some like bioindication protocols as a remedy measure, and so this is now entered Indian biology textbooks, the Raj Gurunagar case. So evolution is a observable process that is shaping the living world around us, including in the rapidly industrializing landscapes of contemporary India. So the moths of Pune have become unexpected ambassadors for understanding how life responds to a human-driven environmental change, a much bigger picture explained by rooting it to hyperlocal realities in the Indian context. So then we can have some key takeaways from this case study and really round it out for the learner. Now we can have some prompts for discussion as well, and we can say like, if industrial pollution were completely eliminated from Raj Guru Nagar, what will happen, do you think, to the moth population over the next 10 to 20 years? Right, it's the same time scale over which the changes have happened. So now again, you try to reverse it. Are you going to see the reversal or not, right? So what is going to influence the speed and direction of change? So likewise, there are many of these discussion prompts, and further deepening the awareness and thinking of the learner in the directions of interest for this particular case study. All right, so once the learner is through all these different dimensions, then they have obtained a holistic perspective of the case study at hand, and they can take an assessment which has 8 questions, and they'll be evaluated on the assessment, and then they'll be given some feedback and recommendations for furthering their knowledge on this particular topic. And then the whole performance can be downloaded as a JSON file. So let's just take the assessment, and here it is. They're all like multiple choice questions which are spread across the Bloom's taxonomy. So we're going to have questions in level 1 to level 6, that is a remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. All right, so let's try to take this very quickly. So let's say this is 90% were dark colored, and why did they become more common? So that's like, have you understood that or not? We can say, so the dark moths were better camouflaged against the soot darkened bark, so they survived predation at higher rates and reproduced more successfully. That sounds like the right answer. So that is just like whether we understood the case study or not. Now apply this. There's another parallel situation that is given in Karnataka, showing similar pollution patterns to what we saw in Pune. And so what do you predict about moth populations there after 10 years, assuming a start with similar genetic variation? Right, so does it require millions of years, or would they individually change color to adapt to the new conditions? Or is it like natural selection favoring camouflage against the darkened moth? Right, sounds like this. So what is the significance of the genetic analysis by the graduate student, that the coloration is controlled by a dominant allele? So it shows that we have to analyze this. So this directly causes genetic mutations. Not really. It just shows that why the dark trait would spread rapidly through the population, right? So only one copy of the allele is needed by the offspring from either parent. So that seems to be the right answer. So I could be failing very badly on this test because I was just like cursorily looking at the case study materials. Obviously, there's a challenging case study that has been crafted by Vidya, right? All right, so here is Bosale, who is the president of the Industrial Association. So there's hardly proof that this change in color is harmful uh, and shows that the operands are harmful. So, what is the flaw from an evolutionary ecology perspective? So, it shows that the argument misses that the moths are indicator species only, right? So, this signals that the entire ecosystem could be affected, right? So, that seems to be a very plausible answer. So, here we come to Bloom's level 5, evaluate, right? Critically evaluate the claim that Pune moth study demonstrates evolution in action. Is this a accurate characterization? Why or why not? So it's not just millions of years. That's what we have been talking about. All key components of evolution by natural selection are demonstrated, right? So it's evolution in action. So create. So design a research study to test whether other insect species in the same area are also undergoing evolutionary changes in response to industrial pollution. So what species would you study, what traits would you measure, and how would you establish causation rather than just correlation? So again, a completely applied and new question, pushing the boundaries of what we have learned from the case study, a totally Bloom's level 6 question, right? A create question, a design question. So design a new research study. Right, so maybe study multiple insect species with varying generation times, measure the traits, and establish causation through controlled experiments. This seems like a good answer, though frankly, to be honest, I've not gone through all the choices that are given here. Another one so that I can then submit my answers and see how well I did on this particular test. Just bear with me for one more minute. This is really interesting. I don't want to drop out at this particular at the end of all this. So create an intervention program to improve the environmental conditions and monitor ecosystem recovery in Rajguru Nagar, right? So what components would you include and how would you measure success? Right, so maybe here graduated pollution controls across multiple sites, creating a gradient, monitoring stations, pale morph sequencing, is it reversed, and integrate citizen science. This sounds like a really comprehensive answer, and I'm going to go back to this. So once I complete all 8 questions, this submit answers becomes active, and then I can submit my answers. And I got 7 out of 8 right, so that's not bad at all. And it's just the first question that I forgot because I didn't really read the full passage to remember. I did better on the higher Bloom's cognitive levels, but not at level 1. So it was 90%. I said 90%. It's actually 85. So that's where I made an error. But all the other ones I've gotten right. And you see it also gives an explanation for all this, why that is the right answer. So further, pointers for the learner, which really strengthens their understanding even better, right? So here's the explanation for this. A effective intervention applies evolutionary lessons from the case study, creates experimental gradients to compare outcomes, uses indicator species, blah, so on, right? And so that is the great thing. And then now I can go and view the detailed results and get some recommendations and feedback. And that is what this button that is now active will do. Right, so by the taxonomy, I get my performance. So just remember I got wrong, but both evaluate and both create I've gotten right. So recommendations, I have demonstrated strong mastery of this topic, natural selection adaptation, evolutionary biology, by really kindling my interest in a case study rooted in the local context, and it also provides some discussion prompts for deeper critical thinking. Right, so now I can review my case study. If I did worse on the assessment, I can retake it, and then I can go forward to a new concept as well. So that is Vidya for you. I hope this has been a useful session. I would be glad for any feedback and comments. Thank you very much.